Okay.
All right.
We're
Hello,
in.
everyone. Stephanie, I can't believe we're already halfway through
I know.
session 3.
And we're into the Travefy stuff now.
I
How
know.
fun is that? Has
We're
everybody
ready to
been?
go.
I know, and I'm curious too how many people like put us in the chat or put us in the put in the chat if you've been joining for the other ones or if this is your first session today.
And I was telling Stephanie this, but this has definitely been one of my favorite series in a while. Like, all the speakers been great. I've learned a lot. I even put some notes down in for this session too.
Yes.
So hopefully everyone's been able to learn a lot with us.
I know. Oh my God, there's so many people who've been here all day. Woo! Man, this it's so awesome. I really think these I agree. These are so cool because we were talking about it when you approach group trips, it gets kind of tough sometimes because there's so much you can talk about. There's so many different types of groups, there's so many different things. So I feel like everything has been so amazing today. So really cool. And Bonnie, I'm excited for your presentation. This is going to be awesome.
Yes, I know the pressure is on everyone for me, so take it
No.
easy. But
Okay.
yes, excited to go through group trips and how to stay organized with Travefy. If I can speak to anything, staying organized is a huge one. And I think most of you who are advisors, that's just a personality trait at this point, is to be type A, or if not type A, very close to it on being top of stuff. But yes, without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and get started. But thanks everyone for joining. If we have not met, my name is Bonnie. I am now an education and engagement coordinator. And then here with us is, of course, Stephanie. So I'll let you introduce yourself quick.
Yeah, hello. So we have like an education team. So you've probably, if you've joined us before, Bonnie and I have do a lot of these, get to do a lot of these webinars and stuff, and the trainings, the weekly webinars, all that fun stuff. So yeah, this will be awesome. And I'm gonna be in the background. So as Bonnie is showing things, I'll do my best to like look at questions and share like any FAQ. So I told Bonnie, I'm like, my keyboard's gonna be on fire by the end of this session. I just know it. So
Stephanie
I'll be
is
ready.
ready, and we will try to get through as many questions as we can. I know the others have led up to pretty much time, but I have carved out some time here for questions only, so we should be good. But let's go ahead. Let's take a look at how things have shaped up for today. I know, like Stephanie said, we have had a big day, and a lot of you were able to join us for all the sessions, so thank you for that. I know time is money. But first one we had, of course, was with Corinna Johnson, and then session 2 was with the panel, where we got to ask a lot of different questions, get their insight on different group travel, specialties, niches, etc. So if you did not tune in or couldn't, had to miss it, tune into all of them. They are amazing. I loved it. And then, of course, session 3 is where we are looking at Travefy specifically. How do we organize for group trips? And then session 4, which is right after this, is going to be about marketing and landing pages, one of my favorite topics. If you've ever had a training with me, you know that. But let's go ahead. Oh, next slide. We are recording. We record all
Yes.
of our videos. If we are not recording, something is wrong, pinch us. But this will be recorded. It's going to be on our group registration page, which I believe Stephanie will put in later in the chat. But amazing stuff. And we're going to be giving out some freebies, so templates. So anything we build in today, I will be sharing out in something like an FAQ article with some different links and some different notes. So if you're anything like me, feel free, sit back and relax. Don't feel like you need to take notes. I've taken them for you already. So without further ado, we're going to do just a very quick overview of Travefy's tools, just to get into the headspace of Travefy, what we're focusing on today. And then we'll go ahead and do our demo of those organizational tools and tips with Q&A. So if we go to this slide here, you might be familiar with this, but this is our workflow in Travefy. We start in marketing with those websites, landing pages. How do we get new clients in? How do we get new travelers interested in booking with us? And then we'll move over into forms and credit card authorizations. That's how we qualify those leads, how we can get those group trips going. And then CRM, which is client management for invoicing, automations, task lists, so much more that's being added to that today alone. And then focusing in on the last piece, which is your sales and your trip management, which are those proposals and itineraries. But with what we're doing today, I wanted to focus in and highlight, and maybe you notice the quick little pink highlights here, but we're going to be focusing on these 4 items. So that leads, CRM, and then proposals and itineraries part of groups. So let's go ahead, take a look. I believe this is my sign to hop into Travefy, which I'm excited to do. Definitely join us for our next session, which again is about the landing pages. But where we're starting out today is going to be in our library. So if you all are following along with me, if not, that's okay. We're going to click into library up at the top. And I'm going to take a moment to pause. You might notice a button in my navigation bar that has been added. After this, don't do it now, but after this, why don't you sign into your account, see if maybe that button is there for you as well. And I'm just going to leave it at that. Just take a look if you want to. But we're going to look at how do we make a group booking form. So that's the nice thing about Travefy is that so many tools are all in the same system, so you don't have to jump around to multiple places, purchase multiple subscriptions. And so one big thing, of course, is how do we get information from clients who want to do a group booking, make it easy on them, make it easy on yourself. So we're going to start from scratch here within our library. It's our custom database, if you will, that you can add whatever you want in here. So if we select new library item up at the top left, you're going to see a whole drop-down list of things you can directly add into your library. We are going to look at forms, but obviously take a look at adding in all of these different event types, and we'll select form. Now there's a few things here that I like to tell people to look at too first. One, title, but also labels. Labels are the most important thing when it comes to building anything in your library and staying organized. Think of labels as a way to group things together, to specify what is what, and it just helps you in the long run when you're trying to search for these things later on. So for today, we're actually going to make up a whole complete story. We're going to Utah in my little fake trip, and I'm going to call this Utah group booking form. You can name it whatever you want. If you're looking to create more so of a template, keep it really general. You can always make duplicates of a form, copies of anything in here. Next thing, labels. You might be wondering what's the best way to label something. I usually recommend for labels 2 of them. 1 is the topic, and then 2, if there's a geographic location, put that down. So for me, I'm going to do Utah, create and add that as a label. And then I'm going to put in webinar as my topic, just so I can find this later on and share that with you guys. But this way, if there's 2, I have 2 ways of finding it. But next thing are these buttons down here. 1, you can create it from a template. So if we select create from template, we have 4 templates in here for you right now. These are all going to be forms that have questions that are pre-populated for you, that are already set up. Really great if you want to build off of something, if you don't want to do it completely from scratch. But since we are focusing our time in today on building a form, we're going to do it from scratch, completely custom. And again, I'll share this form out with you guys at the end here. But let's select add new. And I like to keep things simple. So hopefully if you've been a Travefy user, just stick with me. We'll get into some more advanced tips along the way. But we have 3 options here. 1, you can ask your question. 2, a text and image only. This is great for if you want to add your logo, which I recommend doing from a marketing standpoint and branding standpoint, as well as any instructions or messages. And then 3rd, if you use Calendly, you can embed your calendar in here if you need to set up a consultation call with them afterwards. Might as well just include that link in there for them so they don't have to reach out to you and you don't have to reach out to them. But first things first, let's do a text and image only. Here's what that is going to look like. Start from the top, work your way towards the bottom. We are going to click and drag the image here. And you have a lot of different options. Because I always say put your logo in, I'm going to do an upload option. But feel free, if you're doing a Hawaiian group trip, find a picture of Hawaii. That is amazing. But let's see here. I'm going to grab this logo. And I always say this too, edit. Make sure you click the edit button. I'll make sure to actually slow down and show you that once more. Edit's just making sure your photo fits within there. So if you can see that there, edit right up at the top. Once you're happy with how things look, click save. And you're starting to see, here's that little photo. Here's some additional text or instructions area. For me, I'm going to add in some instructions. I don't think you can tell a traveler enough instructions or clarifications. So I'm just going to paste this little piece in here. Again, we're kind of thinking of this as a group form. With Travefy, I usually say have it be where if they are not a minor, have them fill it out individually, or if, maybe mom's just wanting to fill it out for everyone, have mom fill it out for herself, go back to the link, fill it out for dad, etc. For minors, this is up to you, to be completely honest. We don't really need a contact profile for a minor. We don't need to know their email. Again, that's personal preference. So that is why I'm including these following instructions. And we're going to get more into that here soon. But right now, let's click the check mark, and we're going to just continue adding our questions along the way. So the next thing is we're going to add a question in. This box here is where we ask said question, and to the right is going to be the answer field you're looking for. Pretty simple. So let's start with a simpler one. We'll ask for their full name. To the right, you might think short answer is fine. Actually, whenever we ask a contact question, make sure it is a smart field answer field. So I'm asking a name. I know that is a contact question. We're going to click into the answer field area. You're going to see a whole list of different answer fields you can do. Smart fields is the key to making sure you don't have to do nearly as much manual labor when it comes to receiving your form responses back. So if I select Smart Field, I have a little subcategory. It just by chance puts in contact name, but these are our Smart Fields. So on any contact question, make sure you do that Smart Field. And the reason for that, you might be wondering, you keep saying do it, but why? Smart Fields are going to record your client's responses. It creates an automatic contact profile for them. And let's say, Stephanie fills this out. For some reason, she puts in a different last name. What it's going to do for me, it recognizes Stephanie, and it's going to ask if we want to update her contact profile. So I don't have to have a response in front of me, her contact profile. I don't have to go back and forth and make sure that I have everything updated. It'll do that for us because it is, again, a smart field. Now that was a lot, so we're going to do a couple of more of these questions. And I do like to require this, so we'll click that check mark. Let's add another smart field question, and we're asking a name let's do a primary email address. I like to put in the word primary, especially when it comes to a group, so we can kind of just reiterate, like, you as the individual need to put down your primary email address. Pretty straightforward. But let's go again to the right-hand box. We're going to our answer field because it's a contact question. Hopefully everyone's chanting it with me in the background. Because it's a contact question, we need to select a smart field. And by chance again, it happens to know which one I need. So it's going down the list. We do the email, and I am going to require that. That is up to you though, if you want to leave it off. Let's add just a few more questions in. I would usually put a phone number in, but I want to make sure we get through a couple of different kinds. The next one I'm going to have down is which experience would you like? You can word this however you want. Some people will say packages, some people will say bundles. I like experiences. It sounds a little bit nicer in my opinion. So we'll say, which experience would you like to have? And because I'm offering multiple options, I'm going to make this a multiple choice. So we're going to that right-hand side again. We're selecting multiple choice for our answer field type. And I'll zoom in, so hopefully you can see this a bit better. But this is where we can add in our options. So if you do cruises, you might do cabin types or maybe shore experiences, or if you do all-inclusives, which room would you like? Think of it kind of in that sense. So for me, I'm doing it as an explorer experience, and this will make a lot more sense actually when you see the trip I put together. We'll do explorer experience and maybe a VIP experience. That sounds super nice. And I do require this, and they will only be able to select one, but of course you can see the different options. So think out of the box with how this should work for you. But we're going to click that check mark. Again, just to reiterate, we added our logo, instructions, some contact questions. We're asking a multiple choice question. Let's add in another one. And with any group trip, I always want to make sure, with any trip in general, and you guys can probably back me up on this, travel insurance. So we'll say, would you like to purchase travel insurance? And this is where in the additional text or instructions, I would put your link to travel insurance that you go through, maybe some different reasonings on why you should purchase travel insurance. What are the implications of not purchasing? This would be the box that you want to put all of that into right there. Now for me, this is again, a multiple choice question. So we'll keep this quick. Yes, I would like to purchase, yada, yada, yada. And then I'll say no. And I would obviously put in a little bit more like, no, I understand the implications of not purchasing. However you want to word that and however your legal team and how you have your terms set up, great way to put that into there. And I will require this and I will only have them select one. But hopefully we're feeling good about the speed of things. If I need to slow down, Stephanie, yell at me. So we're going to keep on moving, but we can always come back, which is nice. Next question. So let's see, we've hit some of the big ones. I'm looking at my notes here. Ooh, preferences and allergies. That's always the big one. You always want to make sure each member of your group trip is being heard, that even though it's a group one, a lot of things are going to be in common with each other for their trips, that they have, you know, their preferences heard and their taste heard as well. So the next one, do you have any preferences / allergies? Huge. I would want to know if someone has a peanut allergy, just for an example. So if we go to the right, I'm going to do long answer. I don't know how many allergies a person might have, so we're going to play it safe. Do it long answer, but no, they do not need to put this answer in, especially if they don't have any to list. Next couple of ones. Now this one's going to be a little bit fun. So we're stepping it up a little bit. We're going to put in a custom smart field. So we're kind of thinking back, okay, smart fields. We've heard the term smart field before. Again, it's that feature where we can record information, update information. And so something you can set up in your contacts that I'll make sure to point out when we go over there is a custom smart field. And so that is anything that you would want to show on a contact profile that isn't a contact related question. So for me, let's go ahead and do, actually, I think I might have an allergies custom smart field. We're going back to this question. Nice thing about Travefy, you can always go back and change things up. We're selecting smart field. And you might have seen this when I was doing it. We have the contact questions. But for me, and I don't know why I went back there, but you can see my custom fields happen to be birthday and frequent flyer. You can add more of these within your contacts. So we're going to hop around a little bit. So buckle up. We're clicking done on here. Here's our group booking form within our library. I'm going to go over to contacts. I'm going to use Jane Doe as our example. And we're going to go back to our form. So I just want to show you where your custom fields are and where you can set these up. Custom fields are going to hang out in your contact profile. You can click add and select manage, or if you haven't added one in before, just click the add button. But let's add that allergies one in quick together. We'll select add another field, and it's set up pretty much the same way as that form question, but we'll keep that simple. And it doesn't like my slash, so we'll just keep it to allergies today. Short text, protected, and date are your options here. We'll keep it to short text. I'm going to click the check mark, click done editing. So now that is a custom smart field. So if I go back to our library, and here again is our little allergies question, it now is a custom field within my form. So if Stephanie fills this out, maybe she has a shellfish allergy. She put shellfish in here. Shellfish allergy would then show up in her contact just right away. I don't have to go through her responses and look for that. Something that you can, of course, think what type of fields that you would like. Birthday obviously is one, anniversary, preferences, etc. You can have as many as you want. But again, smart fields, always lean on smart fields if you're ever questioning it. But last couple of things, we have only 2 questions left before we get out of here. I'm going to add in another question, of course, and this one is driver's license upload. So for this, we have a feature where you can actually upload documents. Clients can take a picture, upload it that way, or if they have a photo of it in their library, on their photo album, on their phone, whatever it might be, they can upload it into the form. So if we go over to the right, contact document upload is going to be the one you'll want to click. And this is great for if you need driver's license, if you need passports, if you need any type of document, go ahead, select that contact document upload. This is uploaded into our secure storage area, which is encrypted. It has all of the security you could think of. If anyone's curious, we have a whole article on that, but I won't bore you to death with that today. But I will require this. But again, that is contact document upload. We have one last one, and this is going back to kind of that minor's information. Personally, again, I say we don't really need a contact profile for a minor just because we don't necessarily need their email or phone. Depends on the age, quite honestly. So for me, I like to add in a last question where it says optional, and we'll say minors information in the initial text or instructions. This is where I would lay out the type of information I would need on a minor: full name, allergies, etc. But everything is going to be just listed right within here. And again, when I share this template out, you can delete any questions you may not need, customize it to your own liking. But I'm going to do a long answer. We won't require this. Maybe not everyone's going to take a minor on their vacation, and click that check mark. Now, there are some things that we didn't quite go over. You could always add in a card authorization question in here, combine some form questions into one, just so you don't have to have as many. But I always do say if you're asking for any sensitive information or if they're agreeing to anything like travel insurance, something like that, you can always require an electronic signature on here, put your terms and conditions in here. I always lean on the safer side. If you need an electronic signature or maybe you're thinking about it, just turn it on. Everything will be okay. But now with everything here, we always want to preview that. We can see what this looks like on a mobile device. You can always play around with how those buttons work. You can see what it looks like on desktop. Most people, I believe, will usually fill it out on a desktop. So it's nice that it all scrolls out. Here's what that document upload looks like as well. But once you're happy with everything, make sure there's no spelling errors, you can go ahead, click that share button. You have two options. One, you can email this directly to your client. You put in their email, you put in a custom message if you would like. You can actually save custom messages so you can keep your messaging really consistent amongst everyone. For groups especially, it's super nice for email because you can put as many emails in here as you need and it BCCs them. So that was one of the lessons that Corinna talked about. Make sure to BCC your email so not everyone sees everyone's address. But that is one. Otherwise, you can always do this via a link. Links are really nice if maybe you make a Facebook group page for your group and you just need to put that link out there. A lot of different ways you can play with that link, or if someone just needs it texted to them really quick, you can always do that as well. But I will say one quick Bonnie tip, and I'm looking at time, so we're good. Oh, I'm good to share this. I recommend emailing it for a few reasons. One, and I'm going to send this to Stephanie, is because we can actually track that form then. Anything that you email from Travefy, whether it's a form or a trip, proposal itinerary included, if it's emailed from Travefy, we can track that. So we'll send the form off. You might be wondering, okay, now what happens when it gets filled out? One, you'll be emailed a notification, of course. You'll be sent right back here if you click into the link. Responses are going to be in here, so you'll see all of the responses for your one single form. Or if any of you speak in spreadsheets, and that just makes a lot more sense to you, you can always click the three dots right here. And because I don't have any responses, I can't do it, but you can export all of your responses into a spreadsheet and see that a little bit easier. And let's go ahead, we'll click done. Hopefully everyone's feeling good about things. But forms really are so great to just put together. And so you can automate those, and we'll get to that here shortly. Different ways to send that out. But now if we head over to our contacts, we're hopping around a little bit again. Here's Stephanie. Because we emailed that form, like I said, we can track that so much easier. Here's that Utah booking form. I didn't have to do a single thing besides just sending it to her, which I already planned on doing. We can also see where the responses for a different form that she filled out is. You'll always have the option to download it as a PDF. Quick view of the responses. Really nice to have it all in one place and making sure you don't have to lift a finger to do that. Documents, this is where that upload document is going to be. So if she uploads a driver's license photo, that's where it's going to hang out. Now, a few tips when it comes to your contacts. And some of you who have been using Travefy might already know this, but always use labels. So we talked about labels in the library. That's how we can just organize things and find things a lot easier. You can also label your contacts. So for those of you who are doing groups, go ahead, add your first label. We'll call this Utah 2024. Be creative with it. Only you get to see it. So if we do Utah 2024, this is now one of our labels. If I go down to Stephanie's labels area down here, type in Utah 2024. We'll click that. What happens is it starts to group her into there. And we'll say maybe I am going as well. I'm going to type in Utah 2024. What's nice is that when I click there, I just see it and it's filtering all of those contacts. So it's not as overwhelming to see maybe a really long list. I just need to have a specific view. Here's my Utah group. You can add in multiple labels as well. So maybe Stephanie has never booked through us before. Add warm lead as a label. Great one. If you are sales focused, maybe some sales workflow labels would make the most sense to you as well. So warm lead, booked, sold, etc. We give you traveling filters already. So if you need to see who are all of my upcoming travelers who are going on trips soon, you can see that automatically. Past, really great if you want to reach out to some folks who have traveled with you before. Lots of great things on the filters on the side. If you just skim over it, take a minute or two, take a look. But that is really my biggest advice when it comes to your contacts, is emailing when you can and labeling everything when you can. Now, let's see here. We're now moving on to our final piece, which is the itinerary. So this is where we wrap things up all together. And I'll go to trips. And I'm not going to bore you with putting together a whole trip. You might be thinking like, oh my gosh, this is going to take forever. I've already put together the majority of everything. But if anyone has any questions on anything they see, let us know. But I'm going to click into this Utah 2024 itinerary. I'm going to click edit. And here is what we are working with so far. So just to give you a little background story, I like looking up hotels and properties. So I got to admit, I went to Virtuoso Properties first because there are some amazing properties that are listed. And this happened to be one. It's like $5,000 a night. Obviously, I am not going anytime soon here, but might as well put together a fake itinerary for some fake travelers. So this is a group one where I'm saying, you know what? And I'm going back to my notes actually from Corinna's first session she did with us. I've labeled this as a speculative and contracted group travel. So if anyone thinks differently, let me know, but hopefully I got our notes right. So that means I have our books of rooms blocked out so they get the same rate. That's where that contracted piece comes in. See, I was listening. And speculative because I am going along as well. I already have reserved all the room blocks and we're just going to see if anyone wants to come with me. But if I click into a few of these, it's going to be a general itinerary. It's very general. I'm not putting in super specific information. So it's just saying, you know what, here's all the group things we would do together. Everyone would get this itinerary. But you can see up here, I have some information sections. And I have that VIP experience and just general add-on. So if you remember from that first question we put into our form, which experience would you like? Here are those experiences. I just separated it out by the different activities they would be doing. Now, what we can do, and if anyone's curious on why these look different from these, this is because these are info sections. If you want to add in sections that aren't related to a date and won't be related to a date ever, do a new info section. You can also move these sections around if I did not mention that. So if you want these to appear at the bottom, you can drag and drop that. Voila. But the big thing when it comes to groups is how do you want to tackle the itinerary? How do you want to build the itinerary out? And so a little guideline for you that you can decide to take for yourself is if you want to use tags or if you want to make copies of a template. So we're going to walk through each method. For trips that really have 20 or less people, or maybe in this case, 15 or less, depends, look at what you like to manage, quite honestly. We'll stick with 20 for today. If you want to have all 20 people on a trip together, they want to use the group chat together, they all know each other, that's when I recommend using a tag. So for this first one, we can do a tag. I'm going to say maybe Stephanie here, she's going to the national park. She's doing a general add-on. If we click into here, and with any event in Travefy, you're going to see a people section. You can think to yourself, I only want a specific person to go to this. If I select only specific people, I can start to type in a name. I'm going to type in Stephanie. Click that. Her little label shows up, and I can click Done Editing. But maybe Bonnie is doing the VIP experience. She really wants the whole wellness experience here. Again, if only we want certain people assigned to an event or to only see an event, tag them. So again, we go to that people section. We say only specific people. I only want a specific person to see this. Type in the name of that contact or that client and click done editing. So now what happens is when we preview it, it doesn't look like anything really has changed for us since we're the builders of the itinerary. But if I go to preview it, and I will let this load. Hopefully my internet will speed on up. There we go. We have this handy little tool where we can see what views everyone has. So if I want to see what Stephanie sees, and I go all the way to the bottom, we might notice that Desert Wellness is not there because Bonnie has been tagged to it. So if you ever do cruises, for instance, I'll put it in a little bit of a different light because I'm not sure how many of us are going to a Utah resort. But if you're doing cruises and you want maybe Stephanie to be on the ocean view and Bonnie to be on the balcony, but you don't need them to get confused with each other's rooms, but still have the same itinerary, still can chat with each other, that's when tags are really helpful. It allows you to stay in one trip. Whereas, if you make copies of trips, obviously they aren't going to be on the same group chat together. So it depends on how friendly they are with each other at the end of the day. But now if I want to see what Bonnie sees, we can click Bonnie. You might have noticed that event that Stephanie was tagged on disappeared. Desert Wellness is right back here. And you can still do this if there are PDFs that your clients would prefer. You can generate the specific PDF for them. If we select PDF, you can select who that PDF is going to be for exactly. So again, tagging super, super handy for that reason. But now let's say that you're doing a group trip. Not everyone knows each other, but they're still doing the same itinerary, just like this would be. But I don't want to have to build this for, how many people it's going to be, 10 people, let's say, or even 30, who knows? What I can do instead is I can actually save this entire itinerary to the library. So if I click the 3 dots right here, we have that new info section, but we have that save itinerary to library option. I'm not sure how many people have realized that this is a feature in here. So if you haven't, here we go. We'll click Save Itinerary to Library. For me, I'm going to call this Utah 2024 template. Let's capitalize the U there. Labels, this is still going to show up. I'm going to do webinar, and we're going to do a geographic location, which is, of course, Utah. And then you can go through, you can change these up if you wanted to. But if we save that itinerary to our library, it saves that as a little template. So if we go to our library right here, here's that template. You can always go in, you can edit things, add things in if you needed to do that quick. Otherwise, let's say Jane Doe said she wants to go on this Utah trip. She doesn't know Bonnie or Stephanie. I'm going to click itinerary. And if I go over to our little library section right here, type in Utah. I can search it by label or just by the name. That's why labels are important, just in case you forget the name. We are going to search this template. And from here, it's just going to populate for me the same information. So if Jane Doe or Jane Smith, whoever I put down, if they are doing the VIP experience, I can keep that here, but I can also remove a whole section. And I realized too, as I'm going through this, I didn't mention the biggest benefit to saving time with tagging. But again, Stephanie, let me know if we need to go back through anything. I know we're getting close to question time. But to reiterate, if you need to save a template, click your 3 dots, save it to your library. Templates are really handy, so you don't have to rebuild over and over again. Otherwise, you can always make a copy of a trip if that just makes a little bit more sense to your workflow. You can always make copies. But let me go back here. And I know we're kind of going and hopping around again, so apologies on that. I tried to not do it as often, but let me show you the best little secret that has been hidden, and that is our little collapse feature. So if we collapse this, and you're someone who just is like, I need to get this built really quick. I don't have time to spend on building, 20 people's itineraries if they're all going to be the same, but I need to tag. What you can do, select the options that you need to tag, 3 dots at the top. 3 dots usually have a lot of options for you. And from here, you're going to see a lot of different things that you can bulk edit. So if you need to save certain things to your library as a little bundle, or you need to duplicate things or tag people all at once, we'll just do Stephanie again. Save tags. That way I don't have to go into 3 events, type her name, and continue on. Just does it for us. So again, that is our little collapse and expand feature. Definitely check it out if you are someone who does groups consistently. But we're kind of at the end of what I had. I realized, though, we should have enough time to cover this, and I'm going to share this out again with everybody at the end. But besides the tagging, besides making templates, we talked about forms so we can make sure our form gets filled out, we get the information from clients, and of course, contacts, which is where all of the information is connected, of course. What you can do to save yourself even more time is set up a task list with a lot of those automations. So this is where we kind of talked about it in some of those earlier sessions where, figure out your workflow, see what workflow works best with you and your clients to save the most amount of time for everybody. But then come in here and create a task list based off of your workflow. And we have quite a few templates already built out for you if you ever just need some good ideas on a workflow. And this is one that I'll actually share. But this way you can automate your trip invites going out. You can automate trip chat messages. So if you're someone who creates packing lists and you want a packing list to be sent to your clients, maybe 10 days before their trip start date, you can have that all automated. And what's nice is your clients don't necessarily need the app. The app is amazing, and I'll talk about that here shortly. But this all sends them an email notification message with links to go view the message, view the trip. You can automate that form. So if you make the itinerary, we have that little template right here, and we need that form to be sent out to our clients on that trip. They just automatically get that, and we don't have to find their email. It'll just send to them. But what I will be sharing here, if I go to our library, is that group task list. Take a look. You can, of course, again, customize this to how you want it to work for you. If you don't need a mobile app check-in, you can always remove that out. If you don't need the trip chat, if you want to add more trip chats, you can do so. But that task list is so, so handy, especially if you're thinking about doing groups or doing groups currently. You can just have the system work for you instead of you clicking a button a million different times. But if you're curious and you want to create a task list of your own, select that task list button, add in your automations, add in your task. We'll lead you along the way. Again, work your way from top to bottom. That's going to be the saying I say most often today. Work your way from top to bottom on what you want this to automate, any messages, what dates you need it to go out. But that way, if we go to our little copy right here, you'll always have your task and automation section to add in your task list or any additional items. And it's all based off of the date that you put in, which is super nice. But now that you've gone through my long-winded speech, I am going to send everyone in the chat a link to this article I keep referencing that has those outlines, that has some of those freebie items. And that way you guys can start playing around with it. But let me send this to everybody. Let me know if a link doesn't happen to work in case I missed anything. But yeah, I wanted to make sure we had enough time to go over any possible questions. So Stephanie, how are we feeling?
We have a lot. Okay, so now
Perfect.
I didn't stop. I was hoping, I was trying to get to most of them, but I did save some of them to ask. So a couple things. So going to the forms. Let's go back to the forms. So there were a couple people asking what is the best logo or the best size for the graphic or the logo. And 640 by 360 is usually what we say, but that's because your logo that you put, which I love, that the Bonnie Voyage, it's such a great pretend company.
Yes. Yes, so I'm not sure if anyone else uses Canva. I feel like most of us know about Canva, at least. That's where I love to make these types of logos. Definitely my biggest, I guess, piece of advice if you are making a logo for yourself is to have enough border around your actual company name. That's the biggest one, even when it comes to, and we'll talk about this in the landing page builder when we talk about marketing, but that just helps it being able to be resized, not just in Travefy, but Facebook and Instagram. If you've ever tried to post the same thing in Facebook and Instagram, you'll notice that they have different sizes for their photos. I'm not sure if anyone feels that struggle, but having that border just makes things really flexible. And of course, too, you don't have to have that whole border. You can always crop it down to size, but it's easier to crop it down to size versus having to go back to Canva, recreate it, try again, realize it doesn't fit. But yes, love making sure a logo is in there, either
It's
at the
funny
top or
because
the bottom.
yeah, and I answered one of them and I was like, what most users will go in Canva and like play around with it. That it's so easy. So
Yes.
great. So great that way. I love this question because this is going to be on like task stuff, tasks and automations.
Perfect.
So Anna had asked, I have my first group trip for September. Congrats, first of all. That's awesome. And another one next year. But talking about like all their confirmations, itinerary, and trip plans, and I want to add info from time to time to stay in touch between now and their trip date. So what you could do is, yeah, you can add those in. And then when you, well, actually, there's a couple answers to this because you could add those in, chat them when you do, but you can also send the trip invite again and just let them know, like, hey, just added this in. But I also love the ability with those automations where you could set up and say, like, hey, a couple days before the trip, send like, hey, make sure you download the app and let me know, or make sure you've checked out your itinerary like 7 days before, you know. That.
Yes. And I think of a story too, and I cannot even think of their name. So I apologize if this is you who shared this with us. But we heard a story once where it's like, you know what? I'm working the oddest of hours. It could be a Saturday night. I'm up at 11:30. I'm adding in a ton of different edits. And quite honestly, I don't need to bother my client at 11:30, even though I am working that time. So what you can always do if you are the type of person who, you know what, I did a complete revamp of your trip. I want to make sure those changes look good to you. Make a automation, just click add, automate. You can say, you know, this will be a trip invite. And maybe I only want one specific person to get this invite because I had to make quite a few changes just for their single event. Maybe it's a room or a price change. Have it only get sent to them, email invite, include your custom message. But then you can schedule it for maybe that next day within business hours so they aren't under the impression they can reach out to you at 11:30 at night. But yeah, that's a really great one. I'm glad that you brought that up, Anna.
And I have another one, and I have a real life example that's about to go down. So, when it comes to tagging, so some people had asked about like, what if I want people to see everything or I don't? And that is event visibility. But guess what, Bonnie? You can do this because in the freebie, the group trip is currently set as private, so people can't see it. So, can you show us how to change it?
Embarrassing. Yeah. I knew I would make that mistake.
I do this every time. It's okay.
So let me first find the trip invite. I've got to figure out which one it is.
It's let's see. It's the Utah 2024. I think it's this one.
Okay, perfect.
Oh, it's because you added me in there. That's why.
It's Stephanie's fault. Just kidding.
It's my fault. It's
what
my fault.
we will do, and this is really nice too. Maybe it's a family that you're doing. So let's put this in kind of an example. Let's say you're doing a family group trip and you still want everyone to see what their labels are tagged to. They're all staying in different rooms, but you don't care if they see where everyone's staying because they're family. So in that case, you can still use tags. But if we go to settings and we go down here under the group trips, we can make the event visibility public. So that makes sure tags are actually able to be seen by everybody. Whereas with private, the reason why you guys weren't able to see the trip that I just shared out is because if you add a tag, and again, let's say it's Stephanie right here, I only want to make sure Stephanie and Bonnie can see this trip. I don't need Stephanie to share it with all of her friends because I'm only working for Stephanie and Bonnie. So we got to make sure their email is signed into, and then we can just confirm that, yep, this is Stephanie, or yep, this is Bonnie. Public, we don't really care. Perfect, we'll save the changes. And now hopefully you should be able to see it if I have the correct trip in hand. Let me check.
Oh yeah, let's see.
Okay, yes, it should be visible now.
See, now again, real life example. See, we do this every time on webinars too. We always like show tagging and then turn it off for everybody. Yeah. But it's so good having that because actually, like Bonnie, I mean, just as Bonnie explained, but a lot of times, you know, in your trips, you know, just for privacy's sake, you don't really want all that. So that's nice that you have that option. One other thing though, is it looks like the group task list was actually linked to this trip. So could you just share in the chat the group task list really quick? because that's super cool.
Let me find that.
Oh
So
yeah.
we'll go back here. And I'll have to go through. I'll update the article then with the correct one. So group task list. I see the template in there, but I'll just share it out in here in case anyone can't see it for whatever reason. I actually shared one that is a little bit more polished. So we'll just grab this.
This is going to be game changer.
And I'll
This
throw it in the
this
chat.
is
And of course,
yeah.
everyone let me know if you can see that or not. But you
Oh
should
yeah.
be able to save it to your library.
Boom, it is there. Okay, I have another question though for you.
Perfect.
On this. So this is a lot of people were asking this one was basically when you are trying to get multiple travelers information, do you have to send a form to each person or like can they just all fill it out? And I know there's a couple answers to that.
Yes. So let's kind of run with that we don't want to send it out to every person's email. Totally okay. So what we will do instead, and I am going to grab the Utah one because that's our more polished one. But what I say to that are two things, and we are touching on this in the next session. One, if you're making a group landing page, I usually always recommend a group landing page if you meet the amount of people that you would consider be a group. So I would say put it on your landing page. It's really easy to do. Again, we'll walk through that together. Otherwise, there's two other ways you can go about that. One is you can always grab your form link, put it in your trip. And oh gosh, I'm now thinking there's actually three ways you could go about this. One, we can go to our settings, put it in your description. You can hyperlink that link for the form. So we can say, fill out booking form. We can highlight that and then we can use our little insert link button. And we just paste that link that we copied from our library, insert it in here. That way, anyone who has this trip can fill that out. Otherwise, if you want to make things really easy, is you can actually go to your task list or you can add in an automation manually, have that automate. So we'll say instead of a trip invite, let's have that form go out. So we'll say Utah group booking form. And you can say, do I want this to go out to everyone on the trip? Or do I only want it to go to specific people, of course? So this will send out to everyone without you having to type in everybody's emails. So that's another way. I'm thinking there's quite a few different ways you can go through that. These are the
There
top
really
two
is.
ways, I would say. So just as a reminder, you can either copy the form link, put it into your trip settings or put it into your trip somewhere where people can find it. Or you can just automate that form to send out to every traveler who is on your trip already. So either way, we
Yeah.
can get that filled out.
There really is. And one thing too to note is because since all of you might be needing different things depending on the group, one thing that's really handy too is just asking our support team and they can help guide you, which there's that little chat in the bottom left-hand corner. And that's a really great place to ask any questions too. Like if you're like, I have a group of 20, like would it be best? And they might be able to point you in the right direction too. Because realize there is so many ways you can do stuff.
Yep. And I would say too, you guys are the best community in terms of how you help each other and how you grow. So Travefy official group, feel free if you have any industry related questions or Travefy related questions, put that in there. Of course, our support can help. But if it's something like, I'm not sure if it's worked easier for other advisors to do X, Y, and Z, throw it into Facebook, see what you can get. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of great advice and pros and cons to each.
There is, and also the really great thing is, if people will share their forms they've created, tasks lists, there's so much. So you can share those with one another. So it's so
Yes.
cool.
And speaking of sharing is going to just skyrocket. And again, I'm being a little secretive,
so
sneaky about
mysterious.
that. But yeah, again, check out my page, see if there's a button that you don't really recognize, and sign into your account and click into it.
Yeah. Go poke around a little bit,
Yeah,
so
we've
really
got
cool.
30 minutes in between this session and the next, so might be enough time for you to sign on in.
Yeah, I know. Well, on that, so one question that this was another one that was earlier, on forms and like so saving them. So obviously they're being saved in your library, but how do you create, because this one came up a lot because it's like you're creating a template of a form and then you're just going to copy it for each trip. So I think there was a little confusion on like, oh, so do I keep, how do I know what trip this is for? So can you just show like how you copy it and you can create, use it as like a template?
Yes. So that's exactly what form that I shared out in our little freebies area, where I have it really general. So one, I don't have anything about Utah. I don't have anything specific about a trip in here because that's exactly what a template should be. Whether it's a trip or whether it's a form or a landing page, templates should be really general. And so when you go in, think of the questions that you typically ask. So you wouldn't ask what experience are you going for unless maybe you just do one cruise line and you have your set of cruise options. But that's where I would say make your questions general, kind of like this, where I have package options. I have it listed out, but I don't have those specific details because that way I can go up here, click the three dots, and I can click copy. So this is going to duplicate that template. And if I wanted to, I could fill in the really specific details. Now, by no means do you need to do that, though. You could just have a really general form, keep it open-ended, and that way you don't have a ton of different copies going around. It depends on just really your personal style and what you think is going to make the most sense. But yeah, I see both options done a lot when it comes to groups, whether it's that template one more time and you make copies for each group trip, or you just have one single form and then way you can just export the responses, see how it is.
Perfect.
Hopefully that makes sense.
Oh yeah. I know. I like that. It's so nice. I think it's so great. You don't have to start from scratch every time. I mean, that would be brutal. I have another question here that is I'm glad this came up because this is a big one. Is Nicole asked, is there an option to have private notes or comments on any of the itinerary items that only us like travel advisors can see and not the client? Like, how would you do that?
Yeah, so there's, again, kind of a few different ways that you can go about that. I will say there's not a event type where you can select it as private, but that's actually where I would say, you know what? If you're having tags already on your trip, just make a little info section for yourself. You can tag you. So we have myself right there. And this can be my private notes. Put it in however you want. Notes that you have on your contacts, that's already automatically private and internal, so don't have to worry about that. Otherwise, maybe you're making a trip, there's not tags on it, and you don't really want to add a tag just for this. Something you can do, I'm going to move a couple of things around. I'm going to go back to our trips. There we go. All of my Zoom windows and buttons are blocking my screen, so deal with me for a little bit longer, is actually using a task reminder as your notes. You can have as many notes in here. You don't necessarily need a due date, but this is just one other workaround that I have seen. Again, I say that tagging yourself in a private event usually works out the best, especially if you're doing a group anyway.
I know it is really nice. And hopefully we start adding something, like we've definitely heard people on that. So keep that. We'll see what happens. But that is a big one though, like doing that on there. Another let me see. Okay, I lost my track because I was like answering. I was trying to get all of them at once. What is okay, yeah, this is a good one. Can you edit clients' responses on a form if they had like there was an error?
Yeah, so I say yeah, but actually, no, you don't. From a legal standpoint, you don't want to edit your client's responses. Just if they were to come back and saying, you know what, they edited my response, I have proof that they did this, they might try and call you out on other things. It's just not something you want to get into. And for that reason, and you'll have to see whether or not this applies to your situation, but a common one that I see a lot is, my client filled out my huge booking form and they put in their card number wrong, or they have a different card they want to use. How is it that I can make sure that I get that correct card information safely, securely, legally, without them having to go through the entire thing again? And so for something like that, I say make a condensed form. If my person says they just need to put in a card information thing, I can just duplicate this. I don't know if I have a card authorization question in here. I don't. Let's pretend we do. You can click share, duplicate actually, copy it, delete out all the questions you don't need. Just ask that one question and send them the link. They can fill it out and everything is set. And you know that's going to happen to more than just one traveler. So just having a condensed version, whether it's 1 or 2 questions, always the way to go.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, amending things gets a little tricky.
I know. I was going to mention though, if you do need to amend like just like the smart fields or like custom fields, you could do that. You could edit that if you wanted. So you can go into their contact profile and just make it just change over, like overwrite what was put in there. So you could do that. But again, that's kind of the nice thing is that you can rest assured that you're getting everything securely. But yeah, if you need to like make a change on her email, you could do that.
Oh yeah, anything that's not sensitive, you can go in here, change on their contact profile. It's just the responses that don't want to mess with.
Actually, Wendy mentioned that I have now created a change form because it was happening way too often. Yeah.
Yes.
Well, and that actually goes into my next question is, okay, because this was a big one. When we rolled out the ability to collect secure information, like not like credit card authorization, but like passport numbers and things like that, then immediately you all were like, well, I also need a picture of it because they always mistake, like add a mistake. So how I know you kind of went over this, but just to reiterate, can you add like the ability where you can get like a passport photo and like what happens to that? Where does that go?
Yeah, absolutely. So that's one of my favorite features when it comes to forms is that document upload, because I will admit it. I have definitely put in my credit card number wrong before on things. And of course you get the little error, but let's say that you do want that passport information just to make sure. This is where we would do that contact document upload. And if you really wanted to as well, you don't have to have it be a driver's license. You could type in passport information, of course. But if you want to ask something like passport number in addition to that document upload, what you can always do is do that protected field. That's one that we didn't quite go over, but protected just adds additional security. And that way you are asking, 2 questions and you can make sure it's correct. Picture though, usually good enough proof.
I also, yeah, I know. Isn't that so nice? I agree. I think this is one of my favorite top features too.
And these were all from user feedback, like contact document upload didn't used to be one, protected, dates we didn't have for the longest time. So yeah, let us know your feedback, and we've got so many exciting things coming. I wish I could just show you
all of the things. One thing that I want to note that this has already been something we've had, but someone asked this. There's a couple of people, and I'm like, oh yeah, let me just say this, that they asked, are you PCI compliant? And guess what? We're actually like the only one like really that a lot of people are using end-to-end PCI compliant. So it's really good. I mean, it's rigorous auditing like we go through every year, and like it takes a lot to, we have to uphold a very high standard. So it's pretty cool. It is PCI compliant.
PCI compliant, that encrypted data area, like anything you could think of that makes you just go, ugh, we did that.
Could you imagine? I know, it's so crazy.
Legal work.
Yeah. Oh, we were talking about that in other ones too. All the legality. It's like, oh my goodness.
That's really the biggest hurdle too when it comes to groups, as all of our speakers have told us. So
yeah.
Oh, you guys are amazing with handling all of that. And if we can help with anything, by all means, let us know. But yeah, I know we're getting close on time. So any last couple of things, Stephanie, is there one we want to end on, or?
Yeah, well, the only one that I just like, this was a comment. This is on forums also, is someone said, so basically like all the questionnaires that they have in another platform can be in here. And yes, I love that when that's brought up, because we've talked to users so many times where they're like, wait a minute, so I pay for this tool for a form, but I can do it in here and not have to pay extra for that. Like, yeah, so that's a cool reminder just to know that if you are using something, and if Travefy can support what you're already doing, might as well just use all that. Know that this is all part of your subscription already and you have access to it.
Exactly. Like any feature that you ever see will never be at an additional cost right now. So all included in your subscription, which is my biggest, point for landing pages and the website builder, but we will get to that here in 30 minutes.
Yeah.
But yes, I am so excited to go over that. Thank you for staying tuned in this session. I know this was one that we always hop around a lot in, and can be a lot for someone. So let us know if you have any questions, need anything. Otherwise, I'll stop sharing my screen and we will see you here shortly.
Yeah. See you in 30 minutes.
See you
We'll
soon.
be here. See ya.
Bye.